No one's ever asked, how did that impact you? How did you feel? How are you doing now? I'm only 30 years old and I'm wearing a heart monitor because of chest pains that I've had for a number of years now due to probably the stress of all of this more than anything. I'm supposed to push a button on it whenever I feel stressed, and I've been pushing it a lot lately. I've had nightmares ever since I was a little kid. Usually the dreams are Scott hunting me or all of us, me, my mother, and my two sisters. I end up dying, and that's what wakes me up. I refer to him as Scott. Sometimes I slip up and say my father, but I don't ever see him as that. He was the worst thing in my life.
I wish that I could take away things that David has seen. But I think as the oldest sibling, I have a lot of things that I wish that I could bear the burden instead of them having to. Just knowing that he was there and had to deal with that kind of fear. I'll never know what that's like. And I hate knowing that he sees it all the time. I know I couldn't take it away from him, but sometimes I wish I could at least share in it. Because it breaks my heart.
Every morning, my mom would make me a cup of coffee, and we'd sit out on the couch, drinking our coffee together, and just fantasize about the many ways he could die while he was out running an errand. What if while he was out, he got into a crazy accident and just never came home? And every once in a while, I'll be sitting on my porch having a cup of coffee, and I'll think about that. If I was talking to someone in the exact same situation, I'd say kill him. Nobody's gonna come and help you. And if you want to survive, if you want your loved ones to survive, you can't hesitate. This is a picture of Scott and my mom on their wedding night. It was the November after I was born. At this point, Mom already had Jessica through an earlier marriage that had fallen apart. From what I've been told when they met, he was a gentleman, the kind of guy who would give you the shirt off his back, and you wonder what happened to that fun-sounding guy. My mom had to have been happy at one point. She wouldn't have stayed with him, wouldn't have married him if she wasn't. But it's hard to imagine them ever happy. Maybe there was some decency there, but I never got to see it in person. I've only heard stories.
So this is a photo of myself and Scott at their wedding. I hate looking at pictures of Scott. I hate looking at his eyes. It makes me uncomfortable. I do look happy in this photo. Well, this is before everything just went off the rails. I had no idea what was to come. Looking back now, this is a lie. This is a sham. I never felt genuine love from him. I think that I was a pawn, a means to an end. It's weird to look at it and kind of think like what could have been. If things had just turned out differently, then this photo would have an entirely different meaning to me. Coercive control is a form of abuse that does not leave any marks. It's tactics that include intimidation, humiliation, isolation, financial control. It changes you as a person. It makes you doubt yourself. When we first moved, I was excited, but there were rules about everything.
I really love this color. I don't know if it'll be my color, Dad. You'll tell me.
Put it up to you.
How we did things, how we said things, where we went, who we spoke to.
Hey, what do you think you're doing?
On the surface, wiping your feet, the way we wash our hands, that all sounds normal. But jewelry couldn't be worn in the house because we might scratch a countertop. You couldn't sit on the floor if you were wearing jeans because the rivets might scratch the hardwood floor. The rule that we had on Monday might not be the same rule Wednesday. Why did we have the rule? We didn't know. He had complete control over myself, my brother, my sister, my mom.
Take them off.
And there were consequences if you didn't do things his way. Scott would not allow my mom to wear makeup. She wasn't allowed to paint her nails or dye her hair. But one day I came home and my mom was wearing not only makeup, but purple eyeshadow.
Mom?
I was like, what?
Jessica,
What is this?
how was school?
What are you wearing?
And I was asking her, like, why are you wearing this?
I thought you weren't supposed to.
And she wouldn't really give me like a straight answer.
Don't you worry about it.
Just trying to push it off like it wasn't a big deal. And I'm a very persistent person. And I kept asking her, why now? Why this color? What was special about today? And like looking closer, it just dawned on me that it was to cover up bruises.
Can I see?
Jessica, sweetie.
My mom never had to actually tell me that that was why she had the makeup on,
Why don't you go get cleaned up?
but I knew. There was just like a sadness in her eyes, like she didn't have to tell me.
You know how Scott gets.
I think in that moment was when I realized that things had escalated beyond just the yelling and the rules. I realized that there was physical violence going on as well. So one thing that I noticed about Scott was he seemed to get more controlling, a little crazier as time went on. David being born, Emily being born. Everything seemed to push him a little further. And as that took place, he seemed to feel the need to control more and more things and more people around him.
I'll see something.
Set it up.
There was a lot more slammed doors and a lot more hearing things were happening. One time we were in the playroom and my mom was outside and we hear him slam the garage door and scream her name.
Are you stupid? How many times do I have to tell you?
And we could just hear yelling. And then I just heard this banging. And of course we're scared. We had no idea what it was. We knew it wasn't good, but we didn't know exactly what was going on.
Use the other stove!
Eventually, later on, she came into the playroom.
Hey, guys.
And I just kept asking her what it was.
What was that noise before?
And she didn't want to answer me. She wanted me to just leave it alone, let it go. And eventually she told me that the sound that we heard was him slamming her head against the garage door.
I should have known better.
Scott had rules about which shovels were used where, and she was using the wrong shovel. And then because he did that, she kind of like fell on the floor, and then he beat her more because she got dirty from falling on the garage floor. But Scott was really good at not leaving a lot of marks. The time that she wore the makeup was like an exception to the rule. Other injuries were more punching in the ribs, kicking in the ribs. Typically, there weren't a lot of marks. I just remember being very afraid, not understanding why something like that would happen, feeling like I wish that I could protect her, but I knew that I couldn't.
We're gonna figure everything out.
So many people after everything happened were like, why didn't you just tell us? We didn't feel like we could tell anyone. That felt more dangerous because he told my mom that if she ever tried to leave him, that he would find her and he would kill her. But he would kill me first and make her watch. Her overall appearance was just defeated. You could see the stress, you could see the anxiety, you could see the fear. She was never at ease. She just always seemed scared.
The frequency grew over time to the point where if we tracked a grain of sand into the house, he'd beat our mom. If he thought we turned the light switch on too forcefully, he'd beat our mom. Normally, Jessica and I would all cower in the playroom and know that we couldn't do anything. There was one time in particular, Jessica was away for the weekend, so it was just me and Emily in the playroom. He comes stomping down the hall, tells us he'll cave our heads in with baseball bats if we make a noise. He doesn't want to hear a sound out of this room, slams the door, stomps back down the hall, and starts beating our mother.
How many times do I have to tell you, shut the hell up?
And we can hear the screaming, we can hear the hitting, the impacts reverberated through the house. But, you know, the next thing I knew, she was calling out for me. And she had never done that before. She must have been thinking that that was the moment that she was gonna die. When I heard her call out for me, it was almost like instinct took over. I didn't even think about the ramifications of pissing him off by going down there and defying him. I ran down the hall to the kitchen, and as I came around the corner, she was on the floor in the fetal position, and he had clearly been kicking her in the rib. He looked over and saw me, and he had that look of the beast in his eye. When he was in that kind of a mindset, there was a look in his eye that was just this primal rage. I don't believe in demonic possession, but if I did, that would be it. When you saw that look, you just knew he is just out for blood. I ran back down the hallway towards the playroom, and he caught up with me by the time I got to the door and picked me up by the collar of my shirt and threw me into the playroom. They closed the door, went back down the hall, and the beating stopped. I started thinking about how I could kill him to save us all, even if it meant I spent the rest of my life in jail. I thought of sneaking into his room and hiding under the bed until he fell asleep and coming out with a kitchen knife and stabbing him. I remember very distinctly that night looking at myself in the mirror and seeing this scrawny 10-year-old who couldn't protect his mom, and realizing that I needed to start preparing for when the day came that I needed to fight him. Every night before bed, I would do a couple hundred push-ups, a couple hundred sit-ups, but I didn't realize that the last fight wasn't gonna be a fist fight and that he would bring a gun.
Hey, Hi, Daddy. Hi, Jeff.
Scott was my stepfather, and I felt like he used that to his benefit when I was supposed to be listening to what he said. He was my father. When it came to him trying to explain why it would be okay to have a sexual relationship with me, he was my stepfather. It kind of started innocently enough. I was about 18, and one morning, Emily was in bed with Scott cuddling, and he wanted me to join. But then it turned into just me, and then just me with the door closed, and then wanting me to wear less clothes, and him to wear less clothes. Then it became Scott sending my mom to come get me. I feel like that's probably one of the cruelest things that he did. I remember her coming in the morning to get me. She's like, Daddy wants you to come snuggle. And I would be like, I don't want to go in there. I don't want to. And she'd say, I know. Her face was one of sadness, but I still had to go. And am I mad at her about it? Of course. Do I blame her a little bit? Yes. But I understand, and a lot of people don't. They say that she was complicit, that she didn't care, and she was serving me up to him on a platter. That's not what happened. At that time, compliance was our only option. No one liked it, but there wasn't a choice. If I said no, he'd be upset, and I didn't want anything to happen to my mom, so I said yes. Even though I was in college when this was going on, and I had a car, and I had the means to leave, I couldn't. I couldn't leave my mother behind. I couldn't leave my siblings behind. I would try to make excuses. I have to go to the bathroom. My stomach hurts. I'm hungry. I think I hear David. David knew what was going on, and he knew I didn't want to go in there.
I don't remember Jessica ever telling me what Scott was doing to her. It was apparent to me that something was happening behind closed doors, and it was less common if I was actively around Jessica. I think he was afraid of me figuring it out. So if I stayed awake and didn't go to bed, it was less likely that he would call her into his room. I realized I needed to stay awake until sometimes up to 1 at night, just to listen. It's something that sticks with me to this day. It takes me a couple hours to fall asleep at night, and I wake up throughout the night most nights.
When I was in college, I would just come home on weekends. Every time I was leaving to go back to school, I had to leave him a note. Basically just thanking him for being such a wonderful stepfather, for all the things that he does for me. I'll miss you, see you next weekend, kind of a thing. And I remember standing at the island in the kitchen, just like not even knowing what to write anymore, because I'm like, what else can I say? I hated him. He was a terrible person that made our lives hell. And I still had to write him this like sicky sweet note like we were the Waltons. But I did it because I knew if he woke up and it wasn't there, what kind of day was that gonna be for my mom? It was like another thing I felt like I needed to do to try to ensure things would go smoothly for my family in my absence. I had no idea that Scott was saving them, dating them. After everything happened, Scott actually used them in court as a tactic. Like, oh, if I had done all these things to her, if I treated her this way, if she was so afraid of me, why would she leave me all these nice notes? These are the notes that Scott made me write for him. This one is particularly upsetting. It says, "Good morning, Daddy-O. I hope you slept well. It was nice spending time with you last night. I hope you have a good week. I love you. See you Friday. Love, Buddha." And that was because I was subconscious about my weight. So Buddha belly, you know, it was just, all of this was humorous to him. I didn't mean a word of it, but I did it for my mom. I was honestly embarrassed when this was something that he used in court to say, you know, how could these things be true? When she wrote me these notes, I felt foolish. I felt like, how can I back up what I'm saying when he has this thing in my handwriting? I didn't think that my mom had it in her for us to escape the way that we did. And I certainly don't think that Scott thought that my mom had it in her to do that. So on the morning of April 14th, 2007, our microwave stopped working.
Damn it!
This set him off.
Are you kidding me? Again?
I'm sure I was making a facial expression that he didn't find compliant.
What the hell was that?
And he just came over and, like, open hand just slapped me across the face. And that had never really happened before. And as he was, like, kind of yelling at us, yelling at me, my mom was mouthing to us, like, over his shoulder that we were gonna leave. We could see her saying, like,
According to my mom, that was the breaking moment.
Are you okay?
The level of physical violence directed at one of the kids.
We're leaving tonight.
Most days, Scott had this ritual that he took these very weirdly long showers that lasted around 2 hours. Our mom said, tonight, when he takes his shower, we're gonna leave. There was a lot of disbelief, but there was definitely a cautious optimism of, we could actually do this. It started to get pretty late. We thought it wasn't gonna happen. And then a little bit later than he normally would take his nightly shower, we heard the water go on, and it was go time. Everything from that moment on was just on the seat of our pants. We're gonna need toothbrushes, pillows, a couple days worth of clothes, and we don't have suitcases. What do we do? And we were just like, garbage bags. Me and Jessica started going through the house, opening drawers, not even looking, dumping stuff in.
I think Mom was looking for things like our Social Security cards, you know, birth certificates, like things like that, important things that she would need. It felt surreal. I wasn't quite sure we were gonna be able to pull it off. Was he gonna catch us? And then what? What's gonna happen? Is this when he's gonna finally actually kill all of us?
All of this was a big risk because his bathroom had a window on the driveway, so we had to make sure we were as quiet as possible. We piled everybody in the van, put it in neutral, and rolled down the driveway as far as possible away from the house before turning the engine on. Drove a few towns over to a random, dinky little motel, which was both exhilarating and absolutely terrifying. Every time we heard somebody walking down the hall or heard the ice machine or heard the wind blow, we thought it was him.
We were too afraid to be separated. We had to stay together as a unit, and no one would take us except for a shelter in California.
While we were gone in California, unbeknownst to us, he started to put some plans that we weren't even aware of into action.
No, of course not. No, I would never do anything like that.
We attempted to check our bank accounts, and he had drained everything from our mother's account.
No, we're not going back. We can't.
We found out around that time that he had put out an Amber Alert for us that we were missing. And then he hired a lawyer and filed for custody of us, saying that our mother had kidnapped us.
The court date came and went, and my mom didn't know about it. Scott won.
I understand.
Mom, is everything all right?
We were going to have to return to the state of Connecticut for her to hand the kids over to Scott. I think she was terrified, not only to go back, but at the thought of having to hand David and Emily over to him. We had no idea what we were going to be facing.
What if we just kept going?
We floated the idea of running away and kind of going off grid, but we ended up deciding against that because not only would we have to live in fear of him looking over our shoulders for the rest of our lives, but that would also mean that anytime we saw a police officer, we would be worried that they were there to arrest our mom and take us all back by force.
So what do we do?
What if we just tell the police?
So we decided that the only option that we had was to fight it in court.
One of the first things that we did was go to the Plymouth Police Department, file official reports there. We reported the physical violence, the sexual abuse, all of that.
We did get the restraining order, and in the end, he was forced to move out. Our plan in coming back to Connecticut was always for it to be a temporary situation. As soon as we were not required to be there, we intended to leave. We felt that we would send Jessica out early to get a job, to start setting up a life for us. We would follow as soon as we could.
And it was sad, but I was like, oh, I'm going to see them soon. There's just like a little bit more to do, and, then we'll all be together again. So I headed back. And my mom and my brother and sister were staying at a friend's house. It was emotional to be separated from them. But I didn't anticipate what happened next.
On August 22nd, we decided that we would go take a few of our belongings back to our friend's house. It appeared that Scott had moved out of the house. That night, we left, and when we left all of the lights on and all of the windows open. On August 23rd, we went back to the house to pick up a few more things. When we arrived, all of the blinds were shut and all of the lights were off, so clearly somebody had been up there. We called the local police, and they searched all of our rooms upstairs, the attic, the loft, the garage. But our grandmother, Mary Lou, lived on the ground floor of a separate in-law apartment. After they searched our portion of the house, they went to the in-law apartment, and she opened it a crack, and they asked if they could search the unit, and she said that it was her private property and that they would need a warrant. They decided not to pursue it. We didn't know at that point that Scott was hidden somewhere within Mary Lou's apartment. But at one point during the search, they missed 2 key items that should have been a major red flag that there was somebody in the building. In one of the kitchen cabinets was a baby monitor. While the police were searching the house, Scott was hidden somewhere within Mary Lou's apartment, listening to our conversations. And also, there was a note next to the telephone that had not been there on the first day that said that the telephone line was no longer in service. We had kind of gathered the supplies that we wanted, and my mom just wanted to do some more cleaning. So I went next door to play video games with my old friend, and around 10 p.m., we got a call at my neighbor's house. It was my mom telling me that it was getting late and it was time to come home. My friend walked me back to the front door, and I distinctly remember locking the front door behind me. And I turned around, and I remember seeing just a gun come past the door of the kitchen. And at first I thought it's a sick joke until I saw Scott follow the gun. I saw that look in his eye that he always got when he was about to be violent. Right on his heels was his mother saying, "Scott, don't do it. Don't do it now. We're gonna settle in court. Don't do this." And he went over and grabbed my mom by the hair and said, "If anybody calls the cops, I'll shoot you." And slammed her head onto the counter. And she just kept saying, "Scott, don't do this, not in front of the children." Ever since the day we ran away, I started to carry a pocket knife on me. I unfurled the pocket knife and tried to brace myself to stab him. If I could go back and talk to myself, August 23rd at 9 p.m., I would tell myself, in an hour, you have to kill Scott. You can't hesitate. And knowing what I know now, I don't think I would have let that moment pass. But I thought, I can't kill someone. And in that moment, he turned around and I lost the opportunity. He turned the gun on me and said, "Don't think about it," and dragged her out and down the stairs by her hair. I ran to the phone in the kitchen and tried dialing 911, I think 3 times before I realized that there was just no sound in the phone. And that's when I noticed the new note that hadn't been there the day before in his handwriting that said that the phone had been disconnected. As soon as I noticed that, I just dropped it and ran for the stairs, and I heard a gunshot, and everything went black. I was told he shot the gun, I think 5 times, but I only remember 1. Everything after that was a blur. When he shot her, she had fallen down the stairs and her head was close to the bottom. Her feet were halfway up the stairs. And there was blood everywhere. There was brain matter everywhere. I listened for a heartbeat and there was none. Just half of her face was gone. And just ground up. Scott jumped in one of the vehicles and peeled out of the driveway, and the police arrived. They started taking statements. I covered Emily's eyes as quickly as I could as she screamed that she wanted to see her mom. And I told her that it was bad enough that I had to live the rest of my life with that image of mom, that I wasn't gonna let her grow up with that image seared into her mind. I got my hands, I think, on somebody's cell phone, and I just started calling family. I called Jessica first.
So I was watching TV. It's probably about 7:30 or so in California, and my phone rang, and I missed it. Didn't think much of it. But then I saw that I had a voicemail, and it was from my brother, David. And when I listened to it, he said, "Dad just shot Mom." I remember I was so distraught, I couldn't even figure out how to make my phone work. I was holding it, staring at it, and I just couldn't put together how to call him back because I was so out of my mind. The rest of that day, the rest of that week was a fog. I remember telling my brother it was gonna be okay, that it was gonna be okay. We were gonna figure it out, and I was gonna get there as soon as I could. I remember laying at the top of the stairs, just crying. I remember thinking, like, I can't go on. I don't want to go on. Like, what am I supposed to do without my mom, without my best friend? But before we could even, like, process any of that, the main concern became, where was Scott?
Eventually, someone took us to a hospital that had a secure wing, and he's already dead. Do you think we should go in and tell them? So I got up and I poked my head out the door and let them know that I knew. And then I just went back in and watched over Emily until the morning came. It was important for me to confirm for my own sanity that he was gone. I definitely wouldn't have put it past him to have found someone who looked enough like him and done enough damage to the body that they found a corpse that conveniently looks similar and called it a day. And in the meantime, he was still out there. They walked me down the hall. They pulled back the curtain, and there he was. I looked at his body, and his eyes finally didn't have that rage in them. They were kind of yellowed and glossed over. He looked a lot cleaner than my mom. I remember that. I remember being angry about that. That the last image that I had of my mom was this bloodied, ground-up mess. The last image that I had of him was kind of cleaned up. Then I asked what had happened, and one of the morticians mimed how he had killed himself. He had fled in the van. He drove 2 or 3 streets over into an abandoned lot and shot himself through the roof of the mouth. When I saw Scott laying there, I was mad that I hadn't been the one to do it. I wanted to have him in a room tied to a chair, just take my anger out on him. It took every fiber of my being, every ounce of self-restraint that I had not to just beat him. They took me back up, and Emily woke up and I told her that the bad man would never hurt her again.
After Mom passed, we all kind of ended up going in different directions. Emily went to California, lived with an aunt and uncle. I got into a relationship, and I went and lived with that person. David went off to school, so then we were in 3 separate states. And it was hard, and we went a lot of years like that, where we became more distant.
It was the first time that 3 of us hadn't been together. But I was lucky enough to buy a house right before the pandemic hit, and I had 2 spare bedrooms. Emily moved into one of my spare bedrooms, and then Jessica came up to visit for a weekend and stayed for 9 months.
We got to spend a lot of time together and really get to know each other as adults. I think that we have definitely strengthened our relationship recently, and we get to see each other more and we talk more, and it's been really good. One thing that my mom always said was that she didn't want to be just another statistic. And after my mom passed, we had the opportunity to advocate for a law on her behalf called Jennifer's Law, which was first named for Jennifer Dulos, another victim of domestic violence, as well as our mother. And it makes it so coercive control is now recognized in family court and is a punishable offense. It helps me see a silver lining in what happened. There's nothing anyone can do to bring Mom back, but I know that she'd be proud of us helping another child not lose their mom. Maybe help another woman get out of a situation. It's very helpful to feel like we're doing positive things in her name. I feel like she would be proud of us.
It's not this taboo thing that we can't talk about anymore. Obviously, my life was indescribably difficult and full of tragedy that most people will never experience in their lives. In spite of all of that, I'm still very privileged. I'm not the only kid who grew up in a broken home. And I think that the world would be a lot better of a place if we all acknowledge that even if I have pain, that doesn't mean that you don't have pain, and that I shouldn't be able to see it, I shouldn't be able to recognize it. I think we're all suffering, and if we don't take the time to acknowledge other people's sufferings, we're all just gonna be suffering alone.
It feels great, just to know that my team worked hard to get here and, played as a team, so. We've got some breaking news now out of Melrose. Police say they've arrested Skydasia Patterson for the murder of Selma McLean, March 25th, 2024, 3:39 in the morning. A 911 operator in the Bronx receives a call that will haunt them forever. I have just killed my mom. The voice on the other end is calm. Too calm. When police arrive at 720 Westchester Avenue, they find a scene of horror. Blood covers the living room floor, a shoe rack is knocked over, and lying unconscious is 46-year-old Selma McLean, her face and head beaten beyond recognition. Standing nearby, still holding a blood-soaked metal cooking pot, is her 26-year-old daughter, Skydasia Patterson. But here's what makes this case so shocking. Just hours earlier, this mother and daughter were at church together, celebrating one of the happiest days of Selma's life. They were inseparable, best friends. Selma had supported her daughter's dreams of becoming a professional basketball player. Skydaja was a college graduate, a former Player of the Year, a rising star. So how does a relationship built on love and support end with a mother's brutal murder? What happened in those final hours, and could anyone have stopped it? Before we get into this heartbreaking case, if you're a fan of true crime stories that explore the darkest corners of the human mind, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. And drop a comment below. Have you ever heard of a case where someone you least expected committed an unthinkable crime? What do you think really happened here? Let's discuss. To understand this tragedy, you need to know who Selma McClain really was. Most people in her community knew her as Jada. She was 46 years old, a mother of 3 daughters, and the kind of person who would do absolutely anything for her family. Roshana Whitted, a close family friend, said it best. She loved her daughter. There wasn't a thing she wouldn't do for her daughter. Sometimes they had their little quarrels, but that was it. They were inseparable. Her daughter was her whole life. Selma wasn't just a mother. She was the life of the party. Everyone who knew her talked about her cooking. Her curry chicken was legendary. Even on nights when she had to work the next morning, she would stay up late cooking for her family. That's just who she was. Her goddaughter Danae Reynolds was 26 years old and saw Selma as a second mother. The family was tight-knit. Selma's own mother was turning 90, and when the two of them got together they acted like kids. They made everyone around them laugh. Selma also had a special relationship with her father. She would tell her co-workers, "I'm on a date with my daddy." He supported her and her daughters in every way he could. When Skydaja was away at college, he would send her money to help out. At a vigil held after her death, Selma's father spoke through tears. He called his daughter his backbone and said she was super special. She's that's a hot father. It's came here and now I've found back more. It's got up with the 2 people. This my granddad had loved so much. When she was in college, I made sure that their mother, I sent one to her to make sure that she could take care of herself. But there was something else about Selma that made her final day even more heartbreaking. Sunday, March 24, 2024, was supposed to be one of the best days of her life. That morning, Selma went to church with Skydaya and other family members. During the service, something incredible happened. Selma gave her life to Christ. She was baptized. She was filled with the Holy Spirit. This was something she had dreamed about for years. Her sister later said at the vigil, prior to all this happening, she was at church on Sunday. She gave her life to God and Christ, which is most important, so we know that she's in eternity, she's in a better place. She got baptized, something that she's always imagined and dreamed of. Why is all this happening? She was at church on Sunday. She gave her life to God and Christ, which is most important. And God, that's so we know that she's in eternity. She's in a better place. Yeah. She got baptized is something that she's always imagined and dreamed of. There. After church, the family drove to Connecticut to have dinner with Selma's other daughter. It was a beautiful day. A day of faith, family, and celebration. They got back to their apartment in the Bronx around 1 a.m. on March 25th. Even though Selma had to work later that morning, she stayed up until midnight cooking for everyone. That's the kind of mother she was. Her sister remembered. Everybody knows that Jada was a great cook. She stayed up to 12 midnight although we had to go to work the next day. She stayed up and she cooked. Danae Reynolds had come back with them but left the apartment shortly after they arrived. At that moment, everything seemed fine. Selma had just experienced one of the most important spiritual moments of her life. She was surrounded by the people she loved. She had cooked a meal for her family, just like she always did. But within hours, Selma McLean would be dead. The daughter she loved more than anything in the world would be the one to take her life. So what happened? How did a mother-daughter relationship that everyone described as inseparable end in murder? To answer that, we need to understand the daughter she loved more than life itself. Skyda Patterson wasn't always the person standing in that blood-soaked apartment holding a methyl pot. She was once a rising star with a future that seemed limitless. From a young age, Skyda showed incredible talent on the basketball court. Her mother, Selma, recognized that talent early and did everything she could to help her daughter chase her dreams of becoming a professional basketball player. And Skyda didn't disappoint. At Hostos Community College in New York, she dominated. In 2019, she was named the Spalding National Junior College Athletic Association Division III Women's Basketball Player of the Year. That same year, her team won the championship and Skyda was named MVP of the tournament. During that championship game, she scored 31 points, setting a new conference tournament record and breaking a record that had stood for 10 years. After the game, a reporter asked her about her performance. Skyda's response showed the kind of person she was. She didn't brag. She didn't take all the credit. Instead, she said, "My teammates, as long as I help them get better, they'll help me get better. I was just basically focusing on 3 of my teammates and they did the same. And it was just a great night. That feels great just to know that my team worked hard to get here and, played as a team, throw." When she received the Player of the Year award, she said something that would later feel heartbreaking. "This award means a lot to me because the journey wasn't easy." With a full athletic scholarship, Skyda went on to Lincoln University in Pennsylvania. In 2022, she graduated with a bachelor's degree in business. She had plans to get her master's degree. Her future was bright. Throughout all of this, Selma was there, supporting her, cheering her on. Selma's father even sent money to help Skyda while she was away at college. The family invested in her success. And Skyda and her mother weren't just mother and daughter, they were best friends, inseparable. Everyone who knew them said the same thing. Then, Skyda got pregnant. At first she wasn't ready. The pregnancy was unexpected and she didn't feel prepared to be a mother. But as the months went on, something changed. She started to feel the baby growing inside her. She started to get excited. Skyda had been raised by a loving, supportive mother. She knew what good parenting looked like, and she began to look forward to welcoming her son into the world. She knew her mother would be there to help her, just like Selma had always been there for everything else. Skyda was due in September 2023. Tiu is going to have a baby boy. This was supposed to be the next chapter of her life, a new beginning, a chance to build a family of her own, with her mother by her side. But in July 2023, everything changed. And nothing would ever be the same again. In July or August 2023, just 2 months before her due date, Skyda's baby boy was stillborn. The loss destroyed her. Rashana Whitted, the family friend, explained what happened next. She was due in September 2023, and the baby boy was stillborn. It happened in July or August. She never really dealt with it. Skyda became inconsolable. The grief was too much. She had gone from being excited about becoming a mother to losing her child before he ever took a breath. And she couldn't process it. That's when the voices started. Skyda began hearing things that weren't there. She would talk about voices speaking to her. Her behavior changed completely. The bright, humble basketball star who credited her teammates for her success was disappearing. Around the same time, her relationship with the baby's father fell apart. So now she was dealing with the loss of her child and the end of her relationship all at once. Rashina Whitted said it clearly, she never really dealt with it, and her mental health spiral. But it got worse. Much worse. In February 2024, Skydaja tried to stab her mother to death. Yes, you heard that right. This wasn't the first time Skydaja had tried to kill Selma. According to reports, Selma had contacted law enforcement on 2 previous occasions, saying her daughter had attacked her. After the stabbing attempt in February, Skydaja was admitted to a psychiatric ward. Finally, it seemed like she might get the help she desperately needed. But here's the problem. She was released too soon. Family friends said Skydaja came home without any real improvement. There was no follow-up care, no medication management, no plan to make sure she was actually getting better. She had just tried to murder her mother, and they sent her home. By March 19, 2024, Skydaja was back living with Selma in their apartment at 720 Westchester Avenue in the Bronx. And the voices? They never stopped. Danae Reynolds, Selma's goddaughter, saw what was happening. She talked about how worried she was. She described times when Skydaja would hear voices and even speak in a man's voice. It was terrifying. But what could they do? Skydaja had already been to a psychiatric ward. She had already been released. The system had already failed them once. So Selma did what she always did. She stayed by her daughter's side. She tried to help her. She tried to calm her down when the voices got bad. She prayed. She cooked her favorite foods. She kept family and friends close. She loved her daughter, no matter what. If you're finding this story as heartbreaking as I am, please give this video a thumbs up. It really helps share these important stories with more people. And I want to hear from you. Do you think psychiatric facilities release patients too quickly? Have you or someone you know struggled to get proper care? What's it like where you live? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Your voice matters. Sunday, March 24, 2024, started as a day of hope. That morning, Selma and Skydaja went to church together with other family members. It was a beautiful service, and something incredible happened that day. Selma gave her life to Christ. She was baptized. She was filled with the Holy Spirit. This was something Selma had dreamed about for years. Her sister would later say that Selma got baptized, something that she's always imagined and dreamed of. After church, the family drove to Connecticut to have dinner with Selma's other daughter. They spent the evening together, laughing, talking, enjoying each other's company. It was exactly the kind of day Selma loved, surrounded by her daughters and family. They got back to the Bronx around 1 a.m. on March 25th. Even though Selma had to work later that morning, she did what she always did. She went straight to the kitchen and started cooking. She stayed up until midnight preparing food for her family. Her sister remembered, she stayed up to 12 midnight. Although we had to go to work the next day, she stayed up and she cooked. Danae Reynolds, Selma's goddaughter, had come back with them to the apartment, but she left shortly after they arrived. At that moment, everything seemed okay. Selma had just experienced one of the most important days of her life. She was tired but happy. She had her daughter home with her. But then, something changed. Shortly after Danae left, Selma's phone lit up. She started texting Danae. The messages were frantic. Selma said that Skydaja was hearing voices again, but this time it was different. This time it was worse. Selma texted it was like another person popped out of sky. Skydaja wasn't just hearing voices anymore, she was speaking in a man's voice. Her entire personality had shifted. It was like she had become someone else entirely. Danae would later explain what Selma told her. The demons, the voices in her head, were telling her, "Your mom is out to get you. Your mom is a bad person. Watch out for her." The voice in Skydaja's head was telling her that her mother The woman who had supported her dreams, who had stayed up cooking for her, who had loved her unconditionally, was her enemy. And then Selma sent the most terrifying message of all. I fear for my life. Let that sink in. Selma knew she was in danger. She knew something was seriously wrong. She was scared. But she didn't call 911. Why? Maybe she thought she could calm her daughter down like she had done before. Maybe she didn't want to get her daughter in trouble with the police again. Maybe she thought prayer and love would be enough. Selma stayed close to Skydaja. She tried to calm her down. She prayed. She did everything a mother would do to help her child. But Skydaja wasn't in control anymore. The voices were. And those voices were telling her to hurt the one person who loved her most. This is the heartbreaking reality of what happened that night. Selma wasn't dealing with her daughter anymore. She was dealing with someone in the middle of a severe crisis, someone who had lost touch with reality. Danaya later said she saw Skydaja display this kind of behavior before. Hearing voices, speaking in a man's voice, acting like a completely different person. But this time, there was no one else there, no other family members. Just Selma and Skydaja, alone in that apartment. The family had been trying to manage Skyda's condition on their own. They had been keeping friends and family close. They had been praying. They had been cooking her favorite foods. They had been doing everything they could think of. But it wasn't enough. Because what Skydaja needed wasn't prayer or home cooking or family support. She needed immediate professional help. She needed doctors. She needed medication. She needed to be in a safe place where she couldn't hurt herself or anyone else. But none of that happened. Instead, Selma was left alone with a daughter who was hearing voices telling her that her mother was the enemy. A daughter who had already tried to stab her just 1 month earlier. A daughter who was holding a metal cooking pot. The same pot Selma had probably used just hours before to cook for her family. At 3:39 a.m., the unthinkable happened. So how did we get here? How does a loving mother end up dead at the hands of her own daughter? The answer's complicated, but it comes down to one thing. A perfect storm of failures. Let's break it down. First, there was unprocessed grief. Skydaja lost her baby boy in July or August 2023. That kind of loss is devastating. But according to family friends, she never really dealt with it. She never got proper grief counseling. She never had the support she needed to work through that trauma. And that grief turned into something much darker. Second, there was inadequate psychiatric care. In February 2024, Skydaja tried to stab her mother. She was admitted to a psychiatric ward. But here's the problem. She was released after just 1 month. 1 month. Despite the fact that she had tried to kill her mother, despite the fact that she was still hearing voices, she came home without any real improvement, without follow-up care, without medication management. Third, there was a history of violence. This wasn't a one-time incident. Selma had called the police on 2 previous occasions because her daughter had attacked her. The warning signs were there. Everyone could see them. Fourth, Skydaja was experiencing command hallucinations. That's when voices tell you to do something. In this case, the voice was telling her that her mother was out to get her, that her mother was a bad person. And eventually that voice told her to kill her mother. Fifth, there was no crisis intervention. When Selma texted Danaya saying, "I fear for my life," that should have been the moment someone called 911, but it didn't happen. The family was trying to manage the situation on their own. Now, let's talk about the system failures. Skydaja was released from a psychiatric ward after attempting to murder her mother. Think about that. She tried to stab her mother to death, spent 1 month in care, and then was sent home. No follow-up appointments. No medication checks. No plan. to make sure she was actually getting better. There was no mobile crisis team available to help when Selma realized her daughter was in trouble that night. There was no one to call except 911, and the family didn't know that a crisis like this qualified as an emergency. So what could have prevented this? First, we need to recognize the warning signs: hearing voices, sudden personality changes, speaking in different voices, previous violence. These are all red flags that someone needs immediate help. Second, we need better post-hospitalization care. When someone is released from psychiatric care, especially after a violent incident, there should be mandatory follow-up appointments within days. There should be medication management. There should be home visits to make sure the person is safe. Third, we need crisis intervention teams. Not every emergency requires police with guns. Sometimes what's needed is a trained team that knows how to handle someone in the middle of a breakdown. Fourth, we need grief counseling for people who experience loss. Losing a baby is traumatic. People who go through that need support not just in the immediate aftermath, but for months and years afterward. Here's the bigger picture. This isn't just about Selma and Sky Daja. This is about thousands of families dealing with the same problems. People who need help but can't get it. People who are released from care too early. Families who don't know what to do when someone they love is in crisis. This tragedy didn't have to happen. If the system had worked the way it should have, Selma McLean would still be alive, and Sky Daja Patterson would be getting the help she desperately needed. Instead, one woman is dead, and another will spend years, maybe decades, behind bars. This case shows us that crises like these are medical emergencies that require professional intervention. If this story impacted you, please share it. Awareness can save lives. Hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and share your thoughts. What changes do you think need to happen in how we handle these situations? What state or country are you watching from, and what are resources like where you live? Your comments could help someone who needs it. Now let's remember who we lost. Selma McLean was a woman of faith, love, and devotion. She was a mother who would do anything for her children. She was the life of the party, the one who cooked until midnight even when she had work the next morning. She achieved her spiritual dreams just hours before her death. She was taken far too soon. Sky Daja Patterson was a talented young woman with a bright future, a basketball star, a college graduate, a daughter who loved her mother deeply. Her life was derailed by tragedy and illness. Both of them are victims of a system that failed them. At the vigil held for Selma, her family spoke about unity, love, and the importance of getting help. Her sister said something we should all remember: this can happen to anyone at any time. If you or someone you know is struggling, please reach out. Recognize the warning signs. Don't try to handle it alone. Call for help. May Selma McLean rest in peace. May her family find healing. And may we all learn from this preventable tragedy. Thank you for watching.